As she said, I'm doing my capstone on teen mental health, and specific advocacy and awareness for the people struggling with their mental health. When I was younger, I was someone who struggled and battled with my mental health. I had struggled with controlling my emotions, and specific my anger. I would let my anger get the best of me, and I would make a lot of bad decisions because of it. Um, there was often times where I'd become very hostile towards my parents, and I was constantly lashing out at people. There were many times at home when I would cause a scene, and it was unsafe for my family to be there. So because of that, my little brothers were forced to leave the house. Um, there was many times where I couldn't control myself, and my parents were forced to call the police because um, I wouldn't listen, and I was just causing a big scene. Eventually, it wasn't safe for me to be at home with my family, and which leads me to my next point. There are a lot of teens out there right now who are struggling with depression, anxiety, all sorts of different things, and who are struggling, and sometimes they're able to find the help that they need. Right, we're just gonna ignore that. Sometimes they're able to find help when they're struggling, and then there's times where they can't, and so they are forced to go to short-term or residential treatment centers. I'm guessing most people don't know what short-term or residential treatment centers are. Okay. Um, Short terms are places usually in hospitals or, you know, different like buildings. You stay there for about 1 to 2 weeks. They're mostly somewhere you can go in emergencies. Because of my constant anger and my outburst, I went to many different short terms and many different times. A lot more than I can actually count. Um, I spent days or weeks surrounded by kids that were struggling just like I was. And during this times, I would spend the days bored out of our minds. We'd sometimes get to play games. Very rarely we'd get to watch a movie. But it was mostly us just having to sit around in circles and talk about our feelings. We'd have to wear like these paper-like material hospital clothing. Many times during the days, there would be someone struggling who would have a little outburst, and that'd cause a scene, and you would have to be restrained, and then sometimes you'd have to be sedated, to give you a little shot, be knocked out, and you'd wake up in a room, like a padded room, strapped to a hospital gurney, and you would wait there for a while. There'd be some like weird person outside watching you, making sure you were doing what you were supposed to. And this was a reoccurring thing every day in those places. To me, short terms I didn't find beneficial at all. I think they made a lot of things worse, and I think the kids that are sent there, gain more trauma or gain more problems than they do before they go. Then there are RTCs. That means residential treatment centers. The average stay there is about 1 to 2 years. They're long-term programs. So you can just imagine you're taken to a strange new place, sometimes very far away from home, and that's going to be your new home. And the people that you're there with are your new family for the next 1 to 2 years. These programs are designed for like a long-term program for you to learn how to cope and deal with whatever you're dealing with. And since I struggled with my anger, I became aggressive. As I got older, it got worse, and eventually, I had to attend these long-term programs to keep everyone around me safe. Being in a long-term programs, I would say, is a little more beneficial, or a lot more beneficial than a short-term. Yes, you're away from your family and your home for a long period of time, but you do build a bond with the people you're there with, and you also do learn a lot of skills to help control yourself. You still get an education. It's not a very good one. And they still let you still have as much fun as you can there. They don't make it so it's super boring. There's constant activities for you people to do. All right, so these are what like RTC homes would look like. This is where you'd be staying. This is where people you're living with would sleep. And like I was talking about, you build bonds. These are the people that I built a bond with. It's like they were my family while I was at these programs. Like I said, we did have opportunity to do like fun stuff. Like this was like at a museum. You know, we were able to do, you know, some crazy things. I got to wrestle a fish out of a river. Went fly fishing, and then I also trained my dog that I have at home right now, which is him right there. Like I said, some of these pictures, they look really nice. You know, they look like fun, but a lot of the time at these programs, there was more work involved, and they just take pictures of like the nice things. But there are still a lot of tough things at these programs that we all had to go through. The reason I'm telling you all this is I was struggling with my mental health, and me and my family, we didn't really understand what was going on and what to do. So we were forced to send me to these types of programs. And I want people to be aware of all the teens struggling, especially before they're forced to be sent to these kinds of places. I want to avoid having to send people to treatment programs, especially short terms. For my first experience, this capstone, I got to interview Kimberly Britt, thanks to Pro Faith Taylor. She's the director of My Quiet Cave. My Quiet Cave is a Christ-based foundation that helps people with spiritual and mental wellness. The Overcome program and Fearless program that we have are at Front Range. We're part of their organization. During this interview, I asked her a couple different questions. And the first questions I asked were if she believes enough people are aware of the people struggling with their mental health. She told me, unfortunately, so many people today don't realize how big of a problem it is. Currently, more than half of young adults struggling don't receive care or treatment they need, which is about over 27 million young adults in the U.S. Over 60% of the youth struggling with depression do not receive any mental health treatment, and these numbers haven't been decreasing. We also talked about the best ways that you can help somebody who's struggling with their mental health. She told me the best thing to do is be a friend. She told me a little bit about her past and how when she was struggling, it was her friends that ultimately helped her get her through the tough times. And I definitely agree with her. The people I built a bond with at those places, my friends, were a big reason I have gotten better. And then it's these friends that have kept me out of, helped me through my tough times. So, got these people. And then also it's my family that's helped me ultimately. They've been with me the whole time. Right now there's a big problem is so many people aren't aware of the people struggling. I asked about 15 people that I knew from these different short terms and residential programs. And I asked them if they felt like people were aware or if they felt like they could go to people when they were struggling. And 11 of them said that they didn't feel like people were aware or cared what they were going through, and they felt that even if they went to look for help, they wouldn't be able to receive any. If you see someone who's struggling and you can tell that they're struggling, just reach out, be a friend. A lot of times people are too scared to reach out to you. It's very tough if you're struggling to go ask for help. But I also don't just want people to be aware of the people around us. I want people to be aware of the people in the programs. I know how lonely it can feel, and I know being away from everything and everyone you know for so long really sucks. And it makes you feel really lonely, and honestly, it makes you feel like no one really cares what you're going through. And I know it can be significant, like how significant it is to help these kids if they knew someone out there is like thinking and praying about them. For my second experience this year, I wanted to do a volunteer program with the Shiloh House, but there's some complications. I was going to do a one-on-one program with a student there. I'd spend a couple hours a week with a student, but because of COVID and age restrictions, I was not able to do so. So instead, I decided to make some care packages with Miss Wiersma. Um, the care packages I made we had games, um, some food and snacks, all sorts of stuff. Um, During this whole process, I was really hesitant to do it because my original plan was pretty much thrown out the window. Um, and so trying to figure out another way to um, do something with this Shiloh house was kind of difficult. There's multiple times I wanted to give up because of the cost and then how long it took just to get a response from the Shiloh house. Um, but then I remember the times that I spent in treatment and how boring and definitely how nasty the food was. And I know that like something like this can make a kid's day. And when it was done, I felt like everything was worth it. I felt like these kids finally realized someone was out there and knew that we cared. I know just doing something as small as this is getting some food and candy and donating it to some of these programs can make a huge impact on one of these kids. Even though it took all year, I felt like it was worth it, and I felt like the kids would enjoy this over their break. And as the year went on, I needed to figure out, the current amount of awareness in our community. So I got to interview Miss Eitzen, and this time I asked her a couple questions, and I asked her, has there been an increase in the amount of people struggling with their mental health? And she said, unfortunately, there has been, especially due to COVID and its isolation. But with these increases, there has been an increase in awareness. She believes we may be stepping in the right direction of awareness. I agree that it's gotten somewhat better, but I believe it could be a lot better. I asked her about what the role of the church should be in this struggle. She told me that as Christians, we should be guiding these people down the right path that God has planned for us. And I asked if the church could be doing more. She says, church has been doing more than it was 10 years ago, but it could still be doing more. She told me the benefits of telling your story and how that can really help. And I guess I would agree with her. I think the more people realize that you may not be as different as they are, the more comfortable that they're going to be opening up to people. To further my goal of advocacy, I need to be more aware of different mental illnesses. So for my final component, I did a research project. And I looked at the most common illnesses and their effects. The first one, I also had to look up how many people actually struggled. So I found 26% of people 18 and older struggle with mental health. 1 in 5 teens from the ages 12 to 18 struggle. Prior to COVID-19, 19.86% of adults struggled. Since 2009, there's been more than a 48% increase in teens struggling. So the mental illnesses I looked at were depression, anxiety, ODD, CD, and ADHD. And I'm guessing most people know what depression is. It's one of the more common mental illnesses. Signs to be looking for a lack of enjoyment and things that they once previously enjoyed, looking like they're sad or lonely, and then frequent isolation. But the major mental illnesses that I looked at were ODD and CD, which are conduct disorder and oppositional defiant disorder. Both cause tendencies of violence and aggression. ODD causes people to be very defiant, which is kind of in its name. CD is one of the more common and more serious ones. It causes violence. People with it lack empathy. They look for violence, and they are often to start fights. Throughout this year, I've learned a lot of things about mental health. it's not a big enough concern for people. People with it are constantly being overlooked. The numbers haven't been decreasing, they've actually been increasing. The more and more like I looked at the numbers and the percentages, the more and more I got discouraged about this problem ever going away. But I remembered my journey and my friends' journeys, where all now living healthy lives, and I remembered and I realized that we did it and so can everyone else. I know I can't make a global impact, but I know I can make an impact on the people around me. And I know the people around me can make an impact on the people around them. I realized I can't fix everyone's problems, and I can't magically get rid of every single mental health struggle. But I know I can help guide people down the right path, and I know their struggling isn't unfixable. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm willing to guide people down the right path. And I don't want anyone else to go through what I did and what some of my friends did. As teens, we are the future, and the more impact we can make now, the better our future is going to be. To accomplish these things, I need to be a voice, and I need to be someone that people can rely on. This entire year, I've been learning about mental health and learning about ways I can help. And I now know what I can do to help. Mental health is such a big problem right now, and I know the importance of making people aware of it. I know it can happen when it is not addressed. I'm probably not going to be pursuing a career in this field, but I know that I care a lot about the people who are struggling, and I want to help as much as I can. To end off this, I think I have a Bible verse somewhere. Oh yeah, Proverbs 31:18. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. I want everybody here to be aware of everybody who's struggling, and hopefully my goal is to help further everybody's knowledge and, advocate for these people who are struggling. That's it.